The Houston Texans disappoint. The Astros do not. Friday at 11:35, they deliver us some big news. Actually, a story. An email from Astros PR that came in 3 minutes ago. Astros owner and chairman Jim Crane announced today that the Houston Astros and general manager James Click will not enter into a renewal for the 2023 season. We are grateful for all of James' contributions. We have had great success in each of his 3 seasons, and James has been an important part of that success. I want to personally thank him and wish him well and his family moving forward. Further announcements regarding the structure of baseball operations department will come at a later time. Now you can actually criticize Jim Crane unless there is some sort of solution as for what's next in place. I did not, honestly, think that Click would end up gone. I didn't. I figured that they would come to some arrangement. I will say, let's look at both sides of this. If you are Jim Crane, and over the last 3 years you've been looking at what James Click has done, have you seen anything worthy of, one, giving Click an extension? I think that the Yordan Alvarez deal is the one that you like the most, but maybe Jim Crane was heavily influencing that. The Ryan Presley one looks good after the postseason he just had. The Lance McCullers deal looks bad. I don't like that one. As far as other moves that the Astros have made, did Jim Crane want to keep Carlos Correa? I'm not sure. Obviously, Dusty Baker stood in the way of a trade that would have seen from the New York. Hang on, what's his name?
It was the Cubs.
Cubs, my bad.
Wilson Contreras for Urquidy heads up.
I always confuse the Mets and the Cubs. I think it's the loser juice.
And the pinstripes.
Yeah, that too. Not very similar colors. But Wilson Contreras had been traded from the Cubs to the Astros. Dusty Baker said, nah. I wonder who they get to fill this. And if Jim Crane, who has said that he is taking on a more hands-on role in the Astros organization in the near future, is the guy that's all of a sudden going to step in, that's where I do get a little bit nervous. I'm very curious as to who steps up next. There will definitely be a lot of people who want to take this job. I imagine, though, that they would probably want a little bit of security given the way things just went for James Click, who won a World Series. And even if he didn't do a lot along the way, okay, they won a World Series and the guy moved on. If you're a person taking over after the guy who won a World Series, you got to think to yourself, damn, this is a pretty tough job as far as the expectations. I would like at the very least 2-3 years, something like that. I wonder where Click will end up. I have not seen anything definitive about Brian Cashman getting an extension, though that is expected to take place in New York. And if you want to criticize Jim Crane, I think now it is fair to criticize him for it. We'll see how long it takes for them to find the next guy. 713-780-3776, 713-780-ESPN. If you have a thought on James Click effectively gone as Astros GM, I'm very curious as to who takes over in the short term.
You have to think Jim Crane already has at least the first guy he wants, the first call he's going to make, the Jeff Saturday for Jim Irsay.
Jeff Saturday?
No, but he has the person in mind. There is some speculation that could be David Stearns, the former Milwaukee Brewers GM, and he was, I believe, an assistant GM under Jeff Lunau.
Okay.
So I think we're going to get some Lunau's greatest hits coming up. I think it's going to be a Lunau disciple.
Wait, is it Lunau or Luno?
I switch every time.
Okay, I think it's Luno. It could be Lunau. Lunau.
Lou, I mean, it could be Lou right now. It could be.
Hell yeah.
He could
I
be
like
the
that
next
spin
GM.
zone. Acolytes of Jeff Luno. I'm good with that.
ESPN, nice.
Hell, I'm good with Jeff Luno coming back. I'm coming home, cheating all of baseball. I don't have any other words. I was trying to think of a rhyme. I was going to say gnome. That doesn't really work. That would be funny if Jeff Luno were to come back. Really, that's kind of what I was hoping for. Again, if we go back to the Monday press conference that the Astros had, the Tuesday press conference. Wait, Wednesday? I don't even remember the day anymore. This week's been tough. 713-780-3776. We've got Gary. Gary, what's up?
Hey, just want to say this is a really weird situation, and it's kind of been bubbling and happening over the last couple of months, and it's kind of giving me some Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson type of vibe. Like, you know, this is such a machine that, like, I don't really need you type thing. Like, we've gone to an ALCS, in 2 World Series and won one. So unless he's like, sexually harassing somebody inside the building, there's like zero reason to let this guy go as your GM. So, all dynasties come to an end, and a lot of times it's because of, people get a little power hungry, but I'm not sure what Jim Crane is doing here. It's hard to question him, but this just seems super duper questionable based on the results of the team.
I'm with you in that you can question it, but also, Gary, to go back to a point you made earlier in that phone call, hey, is he wrong in assuming that he can continue this? Because James Click was continuing what Jeff Luhnow did. Does it matter who is the guy running the day-to-day operations of constructing this roster when the roster is in place the way that you want it? I mean, right now, you're trying to just maximize this current team's proverbial window. Your thoughts on the Astros and James Click parting ways? It's the most interactive sports talk show in Houston. The Astros have parted ways with general manager James Click of the last 3 years. You have any thoughts on it? 713-780-3776 to call in, to text in too. Here's what I think will happen next. Jim Crane, I imagine, is going to take a very hands-on role in the coming days and weeks until they are able to bring in the next general manager. I know that there have been some rumors already this offseason, some of the Jeff Luhnow disciples. I know Sean Mapes mentioned a guy from the Milwaukee Brewers in the break. We also have Sig Megdal with the Baltimore Orioles as possibility. Hell, I don't think Jeff Luhnow is completely removed from the equation as far as someone who could potentially come back, though he did sue the Astros when it came down to his termination. Understandable, but I feel like those are bridges that can be mended. I could be wrong on that front. I think, though, that Jim Crane is looking at the Astros right now, thinks to himself, they can maintain what they have without someone like James Click, who maybe differed with Crane on some ideas, and as brought up by some on Twitch and on the text line, that didn't see eye to eye with Dusty Baker. I mean, that was probably a big part of this. Imagine if you made a trade for a player like Wilson Contreras, and the manager, Dusty Baker's like, nah, we're not doing that. That would piss me off if I were the general manager. So I think that's part of it. And also, I'll put this out there. I remember hearing a conversation I probably shouldn't have heard, but I didn't get the feeling that Click really liked it here, based off of some passing comments that I heard from people who are definitely far more in the know than me. Just happened to be eavesdropping at something.
Some passing comments.
Yes, you could say that. Sometimes you're in an elevator and people are just talking and you're just there. And they don't know who you are, and you're like, all right, cool. All I'm going to say on that front. 713-780-3776 to call in, to text in to. Let's go to the HRNP listener line. And Thomas, James Click no longer the general manager of the Houston Astros. The Astros released a statement about 15 minutes ago. Thomas, your thoughts?
Hey, Paul. Yeah, man. So first off, I thought the 1-year deal for Click was going to be a weird situation. He not only has control of the current roster, but obviously the assets for the future. Just puts it in a weird situation. Never thought that was going to work out. But, I mean, look, this team was built by Luhnow. Click, I think, developed and made moves that solidified the entire pitching staff. I think we just need to bring on someone. If it's a Luhnow disciple, sweet. If not, just someone who meets the credentials of valuing, scouting and development, and maybe makes the big splash. I don't think that was a big deal, but just someone that fits the mold and can continue to add on to the foundation and not try to disrupt it and try to, build his own ego. But I'll hang up and listen. Thanks, man.
Appreciate the phone call, Thomas. Yeah, that's what you're looking for, is someone to maintain what you currently have. Now, do you want someone to act quickly? I know that we heard, and I think this was coming from James Click in a Chandler Rome piece for the Houston Chronicle, because Chandler, I believe, is in Las Vegas to cover the general manager's meetings. Chandler said that the Astros, per James Click, are looking at first baseman and left-handers. Do you want someone to go quickly after one Anthony Rizzo, to sign him, potentially give up a draft pick along the way, because you have to do that for somebody who has been tendered? The Yankees, at the very least, did tender him. That's something I do wonder about. I think that's the real pitfall potentially here. Say someone decides to move quickly on Justin Verlander as well. That could be an issue. But I do think that the one good thing that you have with Jim Crane probably being a little more hands-on here is that Crane clearly has a very good relationship with Justin Verlander and might be willing to spend a little bit of extra money on him. Do you need to keep Verlander? I don't know. And I feel like if James Click were to make that argument, I would definitely have listened to him. I think there's a strong argument to be made based off of the World Series and just based off the fact that you have so much pitching depth that you could potentially move on from Verlander.
Yeah, and I think, like you mentioned, Jim Crane being more hands-on of an owner and specifically the relationship with Verlander, but really any of these guys, whether it's Gurriel, if they want to bring him back, Mancini, any of the expiring contracts, Montero, that they want to bring back. I think him being involved does give him kind of a leg up of, well, if any owner's going to kind of run the show, at least for the time being. And again, the MLB offseason is not the same as like the NFL or NBA offseason where day one, every big move happens or all the big guys go in the first couple days. The MLB offseason goes to like the owners meeting, like the week before Christmas. So I don't think this is a super time crunch of like, oh, you're going to miss out on some guys.
Yeah.
It's
think, been cold stove the last couple of years. Like things have moved extremely slowly.
Yeah, and I think Jim Crane can do a good enough job of, hey, Rizzo, don't sign anything until, like, we have an idea of what we want to offer. We'll introduce a new GM, and then we'll hammer out the details. Like, I think all this is still very possible, that they can make all the moves they want. Also, partly because I think Jim Crane already knows who he wants to hire. I think that's why you let the GM's contract expire and then offer him a one-year deal he's not going to accept. I think, he has the replacement in mind.
713-780-3776. I agree with you. I do wonder who that guy will be. Maybe we'll find out by the end of the day. Up next, we've got Austin calling in, 713-780-3776 on the HR&P listener line. Austin, what's up?
Hey, Paul. Love hearing your show, man. You're doing great content, man. And, keep it up. So I really hope that y'all are right, that he knows who he's going to go after. Just because if for whatever reason, let's say it's Stearns, right? And Stearns, whatever reason, just doesn't take it. It's like, no, you know what? Change your heart. Not going to do it anymore. Sorry, Crane. This does not look good, especially during the GM meetings, right? This does not look good with the Astros about how you're just going to let your guy go. And, more or less, agreeing that if he's the right guy for the job or not, that's a separate, I guess, discussion. But the main thing is just the optics don't look great. So hopefully, either we get the guy that Crane really does want so we can get kind of everything back in order, or at least this just doesn't negatively affect us in a big way.
Appreciate the phone call, Austin. The optics aren't great. You're right. And I mean, for across baseball, that's already been, the drum's been beaten on that. This is now a story that Click is not back. Here's a tweet from Bob Nightengale a couple of minutes ago. So if you think this is a bad look, the Astros did announce that they parted ways with him. Well, per Bob Nightengale, Houston Astros GM James Click actually was fired. He was offered a one-year contract and raised from his $1 million salary on Monday, turned it down in pursuit of a longer contract, and was dismissed Friday after publicly airing his grievances at the GM meetings. Maybe that is the Ken Rosenthal article that we discussed a little bit earlier today. That would make sense as far as the actual timing of this. It did seem like Friday there was going to be some sort of a meeting where potentially there could be further negotiations, further discussions. Instead, the Astros have moved on from James Click. One more call on the most interactive sports talk show in Houston. And by the way, I'm going to be sticking around for the next 3 hours doing the Killer Bees with Joel Blank. So Joel's going to weigh in on his take on the James Click firing and or parting of ways, whatever you want to call it. Rob is up last on the most interactive sports talk show in Houston. Rob, what's up?
Hey, guys. I kind of came in halfway through your segment, so that's a surprise to me that you just said that. I didn't know about Click. I just had two quick thoughts that would go together. I kind of think that more than us needing to keep the Astros needing to keep Verlander, signing him would actually help us more by keeping him away from other teams. Seeing him on maybe the Yankees or the Dodgers or the Braves in the playoffs would not be fun. My other thought would be is if they were able to sign Verlander maybe 2 years to get it done. I'm very much a win now kind of person, and maybe take a look at somebody like Rafael Devers, who's having contract struggles with the Red Sox, and
yes.
making some sort of massive trade and throwing Hunter Brown out there for 2 years of Rafael Devers.
Well, the thing with
Move him over
Devers
to
is, I
first
mean,
base and-
where would you put Devers, though? You know, like, are you going to move Devers?
I'd move him over to first base.
Okay.
I think it takes care of your first base hole, and I think it takes another left-handed bat problem that we have. And
Okay.
Devers can absolutely mash.
It would be interesting to see if he actually can play first base, and appreciate the phone call, Rob, on that front. I'll be honest, you know, in my memories of Rafael Devers, I know he's produced of late. I don't know if he's necessarily a guy who's capable of playing first base. Of course, we will see. I remember in third base, he would make a lot of errors with the Boston Red Sox, who were like the clowniest of defensive teams in baseball last year.